All right, let's talk about physics. It's the science that asks the biggest questions out there. And to do that, it often uses some really, really big words. But what if those super impressive sounding terms aren't just describing reality, but are actually creating a story about our place in it? A story that might just be a little bit, well, inflated. I mean, think about the words you always hear. Things like field,
Inflation, quantum gravity,
renormalization,
Entanglement.
parallel universes, many worlds. And, of course, wormholes. It's a whole language that's designed to sound certain, powerful, and honestly, almost impossible for a normal person to understand. But let's just hit pause for a second. Do these big words actually tell us the whole story? Or, and this is the interesting part, are they words we've invented to make our own human point of view seem a little more correct than it really is? And this gets us right to the heart of the argument, this idea of an inflated perspective. The theory goes that to make our tiny human viewpoint make sense of the entire vast cosmos, we've had to invent these big, complicated words that give us a sense of control. So what you're seeing here is this fundamental clash, right? On one side, you've got nature itself. It's huge, it's messy, and it really doesn't care about our neat little boxes. And on the other side, you've got us with what our source material calls the measurement perspective, where we try to make sense of everything using our specific tools like math and measurement. And the result of that clash? Well, it's a way of talking about the universe that is, to put it simply, too inflated. In our desperate attempt to make nature fit our way of seeing things, our language gets bigger and bigger, prioritizing our own need for order over how the universe actually is. Okay, so if that's the problem, how do we get back to a more honest understanding? Well, it all starts by looking at the very foundation of physics, the numbers themselves. This quote from the source just hits the nail on the head. We tend to think of physics as this world of perfect, absolute precision. But this suggests that our feeling of control is really just a comforting story we tell ourselves and our kids to feel more certain than we have any right to be. So the key idea here is actually pretty simple, but it's also profound. Everything in physics is an approximation. Now, that doesn't mean science has failed, not at all. It's just the reality of how it works. Our incredibly powerful and elegant mathematical models are just that. They're models. They are fantastic tools for understanding nature, but they are not nature itself.
So, if our language is inflated and our numbers are all approximations, where do we go from here? Well, the source material suggests a totally different mindset, a new way to think about our relationship with the universe.
And I have to say, I just love this phrase. The solution isn't to throw out all our math and our methods. No way. Instead, it's about adding one key ingredient, what the source beautifully calls a sauce of humbleness. So what does this humbleness actually look like in practice? It's about scientific humility. It's about actively recognizing that our models, no matter how powerful they get, are not perfect copies of reality. They're our best guess, our best description from our very limited, very human point of view. It's really just about being honest about what we don't know. Okay, let's wrap this all up. So what are the big takeaways here? First, the language we use in physics can get inflated, built to make our own perspective seem more certain than it really is. Second, at its core, all of our physics is built on approximation. And finally, and this is the most important part, realizing these things isn't a weakness. It's actually a huge strength. It opens the door to a more humble and ultimately a more honest way of doing science. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We spend so much time focusing on what science knows, but this whole idea pushes us to ask a different question. Think about it. Every great leap forward in science started when someone was brave enough to say, you know what, the old way of thinking isn't working, or just, I don't know. So what do we really stand to gain in new ideas, in creativity, in pure wonder, when we have the courage to just admit what we don't know?